My name is Eric Draitzer. I'm chatting here with Stephen Lendman in Chicago. Stephen is an independent journalist based in Chicago. He's been at it, fighting the good fight for many years, doing a lot of good work. So Stephen had asked if we could do a recorded message here for the United Front Against Austerity. So it is my pleasure to introduce Stephen Lendman.
Thank you, Eric. It really is a joy to be on with you. And what you've planned in New York is really a glorious event. It's something everybody needs to know about. I have an article all written. I'll get it out tomorrow, a few days at least in advance of the event. I want to help promote it. I want people to know about it. Anybody in New York or close to New York should try to get out and be a part of this. It's our battle. We're in this fight, ordinary people. It's us against the criminal bosses in Washington, allied with the criminal bosses in corporate suites. And what's the essence of the struggle? Well, you know, over time it shifts from one thing to another. But the key term now is called austerity, or as we get to the end of 2012 into 2013, you'll hear more about fiscal cliff than you will about austerity. But the name of the game is taking it out on ordinary people, furthering the imperial project abroad, America's permanent war policy. At home, it's taking care of corporate interests, whether it's bailing out bankers, whether it's handing out other big corporate subsidies. They want to get more money to do these things, including waging war from space. That's an issue that's never discussed in the mainstream. I wrote an article about it some months ago. They need an awful lot of money to do this. Where is it going to come from? Well, you claim, as Obama did many months ago, 2 or 3 years ago now, in fact, I think, saying, we're broke. We're broke. We have a deficit problem. We have to address the deficit. There is no deficit problem. There's no deficit problem when it comes to waging imperial wars. There's none when it comes to handing minimally $9 trillion to the bankers. And I've seen estimates run as high as $23 trillion. Can anybody even conceive of numbers like this? Where is the deficit problem? There's no deficit problem with the Federal Reserve. It isn't federal and it doesn't have reserves. It's owned by Wall Street. Keeps printing money, keeps handing out to bankers. All of this goes on, but the name of the game is class war. That's a good way to describe it. Class war. The 1% against the rest of us. The top 10% do all right. It's the other 90% that are in trouble. And austerity is literally creating the Bilderberg's dream. If anybody doesn't know what the Bilderberg's dream is, it's very simple. It's a classless society. They want elitists and serfs, rich folks in power, and ordinary people as serfs. Working people, minimum wages, no benefits. Elitists, the top 1% get it all. Ordinary people get enough just to be sure they don't starve. That's about what it comes down to. It's a very, very ugly world. I talk about it in terms of wanting to transform America and European countries into Guatemala, in the worst sense of the word. A police state to crack down on resistance, and ordinary people having no rights at all, and just getting what the rich folks want to give them, enough to fill the jobs they want. Throw the others in the trash heap, give them nothing. And whether they talk about austerity or fiscal cliff, it's a war on ordinary people by the elitists in the country, by the privileged people, by the war profiteers, by the bankers, by the corporate CEOs. And none of this will, unfortunately, by the union bosses that literally are in bed with these people, betraying their own rank and file. Let me get into that in a moment. But the key, and I say it all the time, and I write it, it's up to ordinary people on our own to take these people on to change things. It can happen if ordinary people want it to happen, but it's got to be done the right way. Can't be done violently. Violence begets more violence. My solution is general strike. It happened in 1968 in France. The whole country came to a standstill for an entire month or more. Workers nearly got what they wanted. They just wanted to be treated fairly. The de Gaulle government nearly collapsed, but the energy waned, the effort failed. The union bosses, even then in the 1960s, were on the side of the corporatists, of the French government. Workers were on their own, but they failed because they didn't sustain it long enough. Had they done it, I think they would have won the battle. And just imagine what might be today if they stayed the course. If it almost happened then, it can happen for sure now. If people on their own do it, and I urge them to do it, it literally can happen, but it won't happen quickly. To go to war against the corporatists and the corrupt politicians, I call, especially the bankers, I call the mother of all struggles. America has won wonderful struggles. People in the 19th century thought ending slavery was impossible. It ended. People thought getting union rights, worker rights, and civil rights was impossible. It happened, but the energy waned. All the gains were lost. They can be gotten back again. I wish we had a leader like Martin Luther King. We don't, or Malcolm X. But it can happen if ordinary people want to. I wrote a lot about the teacher strike in Chicago. It was a very, very big issue. I've written a lot about public education in America, the union bosses again in league with the government officials instead of the corporate bosses. The strike went on for about a week. The energy waned. The workers succumbed to the union bosses. They surrendered. Everything was lost. Corrupt union bosses won. Privatizers wanting to get rid of public education won. I don't see anything happening now, but that was the core issue for me. Saving public education. Public education is a monument to what helped build America. It's on the chopping block to be eliminated. Bush called it No Child Left Behind. Obama calls it Race to the Top. It's a race to the bottom is what it is. And if public education goes, and it sure is on a fast track to get rid of it, if it goes, everything else could follow with it. Imagine America looking like Guatemala. Imagine Europe looking like Guatemala. Imagine it happening because ordinary people who should know better didn't take the trouble to find out. They didn't rise up and do something to stop it. And they ended up losing everything that they had. That's literally what's at stake now. The rights of ordinary people are on the chopping block to be eliminated. You want to lose Medicare? You want to lose Social Security? You want to lose Medicaid for poor people? You want to lose food stamps? You want to lose everything else? Sit back and do nothing and watch it all get taken away piece by piece because that's the plan. Doesn't matter whether it's Obama or Romney or Mickey Mouse. That's the plan. It's all on the chopping block to be gone. Only ordinary people struggling on their own can save it.
Stephen, I think that you make a number of very important points. As we finish up this conversation, I want you to talk about this idea that you mentioned, this general strike notion. And I know you talked about the precedent that was set in France in the late 60s, but a general strike, and we've seen them in Greece today. We've seen, I think, 15 general strikes in Greece since the beginning of the crisis. We see it in other parts of Europe as well, but it seems like it's to no avail. So my question to you would be, as you're thinking about the United Front against austerity and groups similar to that, what role would UFAA and other groups play in creating and promoting a general strike in order to fight against austerity? How is this done? What are the tactics?
The problem with general strikes, the way they've been done in more recent times, people go out on the streets and protest. They go on strike for a day, for 2 days. They can shut the whole country down for a day or 2 or 3 or 4. Worthless. They waste their time. There's only one kind of general strike that works. You go out and you stay out until you get what you want. No compromise, no negotiation. The only negotiation is we want what's fair. We'll accept nothing else. It's not easy. Give up a paycheck, stay out for weeks, for a month, for 2 months, for 6 months. For some, it could be impossible. The alternative is this: cave and lose everything, and imagine what you've got then. It's a lot better to take the pain now and just make out the best you can, or surrender too early and end up losing it all. I think the decision is easy. I don't want to lose it all. I'll suffer. I'll eat one meal a day. I'll sleep on the street if I have to. It's a lot better than losing it all and having no rights whatsoever and literally be living under the worst of despotic regimes, where if you just lift your head up, they'll beat you down. They'll put you in prison. America will be no different than Nazi Germany. And that's exactly where we're very close to now. I don't want it. I don't think ordinary people want it. I don't think the people at your program, Eric, want it. If they don't fight full bore for what's right, they'll end up getting nothing. That's the stakes. You got to go out. You got to stay out until the battle is won. There's no timetable. It can take a long time. Again, I call it the mother of all struggles. Civil rights took years. Well, I don't think people can go without a paycheck for years, but you got to stay out long enough to make these people know, the people I call the dark forces, you got to make them believe you mean business and you won't cave. And when they finally realize that, they'll want to talk and they'll start caving. I honestly believe it can happen.
Stephen, in closing, if you were here in New York City Saturday, October 27th, and you got a chance to actually speak with some of the people who have come to the event, and you could leave them with one final thought, one final comment as they walk out the door, what would that be?
The final thought, Eric, is that literally all change in all human history, no exceptions, always came from the bottom up. Throwing out the bums for new bums just gets you more bums. They're all the same. It's worthless. It's futile. If we don't do it on our own, it'll never get done. It's never been done before. It won't get done now. But the key is, if people want it enough and do it the right way, they can achieve marvelous victories. It's happened in America before. It can happen again. I'm in the fight all the way. I can't imagine surrendering. I can't imagine why anybody would want to. Get involved with UFAA. Stay in the fight long term. And if you do it, I think you can win.
Stephen J. Lendman, independent journalist based in Chicago, here for the United Front Against Austerity. Thanks so much, Stephen.
Thank you, Eric.